Hi guys, welcome back to Taylor Talks Trades. In today's episode, I'm with James Duggan from Plumus Limited. He's all the way up from London, so thanks very much for coming all the way up here, James. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I'll start where I always start. How did you get into the trades?
So I'll say I was in school, wasn't very, I wouldn't say academic, but didn't grasp being in a classroom, did work experience, and then it was one of those where I think it was a 6-week holiday. My mum knew someone that had a building trade, and he was like, oh, he can come work with me through the 6 weeks holidays. So instead of going out doing what kids did, it was like one day I might have been with a roofer, next day I was with an electrician, then I was labouring, then I was with a plumber. I was sort of like, I quite enjoy this.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where I was watching what they were doing, and I was like, I could do that. And do you know what I mean? So it sort of went from there, and then left school, jumped straight into college, went and got a job, and I thought out of all the trades I did there, I was like, I enjoy plumbing the most.
Yeah. So did you go to college and do like a pre-apprenticeship idea? Was that a construction thing you did at college, or were you straight into an apprenticeship?
I went straight into it. It was like an apprenticeship plan, and then it was you had to find your own work.
Okay.
So that's where it got back to the story where it was no one was like, oh, we want someone with experience. We want someone with experience. And then that's when I walked into a little family-run business near me, and I was like, look, I'll come work for free. They sort of looked at me like, what do you mean you'll come work for free? And I was like, well, I want to learn the trade. Yeah,
because you were telling me before we came on air, you were saying you got like 200 companies, you tried everyone. Yeah, no one was taking anybody on.
No, it was like at the Yellow Pages, and everyone was just like, no, not interested.
And this is a common theme, because I've seen this, like, I've had multiple guests on, trades guys that have literally went and done this working for free thing. I know there's a guy just now who he's just done his gas course, and he's trying to find something, and he's started offering himself for free to just try and get experience. Like, does that work then?
Well, I feel if someone is willing to go and do that for nothing, I would look at that now. If someone coming to me, if I went to a college, for example, sometimes they might just be picking it because it's the only route they can do.
Yeah.
It's like, do they actually want to do this, or are they going to come and work for me and, be enthusiastic, driven? Whereas if someone coming to me and went, I work for free, I want to learn your trade, I'd be like, come on, let's go. Because you want it, clearly,
Yeah. So you went into the family-run business, told them you would work for free, and then that was did they give you an apprenticeship then as such? How does it work?
Yeah, so I started, that was with my level 2. So I did my MVQ level 2, my plumbing level 2 with them. So I was college 1 day a week, working 4. You have like a portfolio.
Yeah.
And then it was quite, I'm a firm believer of everything happens for a reason. It was college like, oh, do you want to do your level 3 and you're unvented? And I was like, yeah. And then I went back and spoke to them, and it was like, if you go and do your level 3, you're out of a job.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I took the gamble, took on the level 3, and then it actually worked out that they come in one day and was like, we're finding work placements.
Yeah.
So I was like, bingo. I was like, okay. They found me a job with another family-run business.
Yeah. Quite
far away, but it was so different. They were so restrictive at the first place, was obviously because it was just starting out. Walked into the second place, put me with someone for a day, and I was like, oh, he's actually quite decent. And I had a driving license, and I was like, all right, well, there's a van. Come in on Monday, blah, blah, blah. And then there was like, there's a job sheet, and I was like, shit. Like, but being thrown in the deep end. Was the best thing ever. Like I look back now, it might have taken me 3 hours to change a ball valve, which is ridiculous. But it was like I'd ring someone up in a company. How do I do this? How do I do that? And it was.
It's almost like sink or swim, isn't it?
It literally was. It was like you're gonna sink at this, or you're gonna do it. So
and that's the making of tradespeople, to be honest.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, because you could. I think there's a big emphasis on. When an apprentice goes through a company, there's always this like stigma attached of they'll just always be the apprentice in the company.
Yeah,
there is a bit of that, but I think depending on the company, you can probably let these people grow as well. But I think getting away and sort of trying something else, like you're in the big bad world, aren't you? Like you said, that Monday morning, there's the job seat, and you're like, and this is on me now. You're probably working with someone who's no qualified, so you're there to teach them as well. It's a big shift.
Yeah, it is, but I feel like also they need to earn their stripes. Apprentice needs to earn their stripes, because again, from a business owner's perspective now, you're like, as you know, you've worked so hard to get to where you get to and build the reputation you want. You're like, that could just get destroyed, or not destroyed, but bad reputation. Something drastic goes wrong, and I think I have the mentality now of is when do you let go? You know, when do you let them into the big bad world?
It can be difficult, but I think it's a big investment, apprentices. Do you know, you put a lot in at the early stages, and then at some point they do start to transition and they become really good. And I guess as business owners, like, you naturally want a return on investment, so there has to be a point where you go, we'll need to put you on your own job, you'll need to go and do this now. And they've probably been quite nurtured up till that point.
Well, I think the blessing of that is, like, say, if you took on an apprentice today, or I took on an apprentice today, you can literally teach them your way. Yeah. So whereas I find that sometimes maybe the difficulty is if you take someone on who's been qualified for, say, probably 2-3 years, they've finished their apprenticeship, they've had some experience on the tools, they're going to come to you knowing a different way that you might not like, and then you've got to then almost retrain them. That's where like company values and different things like that come into play. And we have probably, with my main company, Taylor Roofs, we've probably struggled through transition points. So when I had like half a dozen of us, you know, maybe 6-7 people in the business at that time, culture's really easy because you're just basically with the guys almost all the time, and you can put the same message home every day. And then when it gets to sort of like 12 plus, you're like, well, in fact, I think our first big year, I'd been self-employed for 3-4 years, and then I started the company limited and started really taking things seriously. I actually started to understand business, being honest. And that first year, I think we had like 16 guys on the tools, and that was like a big transition. And then like the culture was everywhere. Do you know, it was like, whoa, like these guys over here are doing it that way, and these guys here are doing it that way. And I was like, how do I solve this? But I was just reading books and on culture and different things, and worked with mentors and things like that. And what we did was we started doing like the monthly team meetings. And we'd get everybody together and we'd bring the pizzas in, and we'd be like, guys, this is what I'm looking for. We need to do every job. We need to be thinking about the quality, how tidy the site is, speaking to the customer, like all the basics. We need to do that really, really well. Whereas some of these other people had been like with other companies where you don't bother chapping the door when you get there. You just go and climb on the roof and just get it done and go away. And nobody knows what's been done. So I feel communication is very, very, very important. I feel that especially with your guys on site, with the actual customer, that's to me probably up there with one of the most important things. The transparency and, like you say, what's going on is very, very important.
I think as well, like obviously trades, it's very difficult to not make a mistake because there's so many moving parts. But I think if you communicate with the customer, they're usually fine. Like even if you're not going to turn up, if you phone them and say, look, something's came up, we're not going to make it there, really sorry, they're fine with that because you've communicated. But if you just don't show, and then they need to phone you and say, where are you, then that is...
I feel like I'm a firm believer of, even there's been like numerous scenarios, like you say, like that, or if you're not going to turn up, or if you're waiting on a part to come in, I always believe that you've got to get in touch with them before they chase you. So that's something that we're very on top of. It's always respond, always, you know.
No, definitely.
It's one of those that I think that's definitely up.
And how did things progress then? So you've been in a couple of family run businesses, and then you're sort of earned your stripes, as you maybe called it. And you're very much your own tradesman now, and then where does it progress from there? Where do we?
So I was there and did my gas safe. I actually got gas qualified at that next firm. Then started heating experience, XYZ. Then I think it got to a point where I was there about 5-6 years, and I felt like I'm almost stagnant. Like I'm not moving. I feel like I'm stuck. And I was looking at the company and I was like, there's not really any more position to...
No pathway as such.
No. So then it was a case of, as you know, Pimlico Plumbers. So I was like, well, that's to me the next step. At the time, they were like the best. Everyone had heard of them. Everyone was like, oh, we know who they are. You see their vans everywhere. You see their royal blue uniforms. So I just applied one day. And I even remember it like it was yesterday. Actually, I was on a job Timbuktu away from... it was like a 3-hour drive, I can't remember where it was, and my phone was ringing. It was an 0207 number, and I was like, oh, who's this? And it was like, oh, hi James, this is Pimlico, we've got your application, we'd like to bring you in for an interview. And I was like, okay. And it's quite, their culture there at the time was it's very different to a lot of other businesses. The guy said to me on the phone, they have a phone interview, and he was like, yeah, we'll come in, we want to see you in person. He's like, yeah, just make sure you turn up in a suit. And I was like, turn up in a suit? I was like, well, it's a plumber's job.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, if you turn up in a suit, if you don't turn up dressed smart, you'll just be sent home. Like,
wow.
So that was quite a
good high standards, wasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, I remember getting the train down there to Lambeth North, and I walked off, and I was like, "Wow, this building's intimidating." I was like, you know,
I've seen it. It's insane.
Yeah, so I went for the job there, got the job. I was very young at the time, quite unheard of. I think they had a policy if it was like minimum 5 years experience, five excellent references. They called me up and said, "You got the job," and then I obviously had to break it to my current boss. I was like, "Look, thanks for everything. If I'm honest with you, if it wasn't for them, the sink or swim situation wouldn't have been in the situation where I was then to then progress." Got the job there, and I remember getting in the van day one, and I was like, "Oh, this is different." Everything was different. It was very smooth, slick. Nothing was missed.
Was that like almost like, I'm just thinking like, it almost feels like a football team or something like that. Like you went to like the
elite, you could say the elite of the plumbing companies in London. It was like that, and it was so very different. Like they had everything everywhere. Everything had a procedure. You know, it was like, right, you'll call in at this time in the morning, head in, you'll get a job. There was no going. You know, there was no, oh, we can't do that. It was you get it, you got it done. It was a whole different level of what
there was a solution to every problem almost.
And that's what I believe their unique selling point was. It was like they would just get there, we'll deal with it stress free, and it was a huge learning curve. It's nothing like I've ever experienced.
And was what sort of size was Pimlico at that time then?
When I started in 2017. I started there 2016, 2017.
So there would have been hundreds of staff at that point as well. So it was a big team.
I think on the road, I think it was like 140, 150 vans.
Wow.
The office was probably 100, 150 in the office as well. So it was a total of 200-300 as a whole.
And on a day-to-day basis, like who would you see? Like, would you just see would you work alone, or did you work with someone? Like,
it varied depending on the work you went to. So it was, you would get your job, and again, because we was self-employed, like contractors, you would get the lead. You'd go there, you'd either win the job or price a job or proceed with works. It's all down to, this is what I mean by it taught me a lot about the whole running of a business, because before you work for companies, they're like, you go there, you do that, you leave. There's no me billing up, there's no me having to explain anything to customer, just right, it's all done, see you later. Whereas here, you're knocking on the door, greeting, show us your problem, communicating with them.
So you've got to do a good job there. You've got to present yourself well, or they're going to probably query that bill at the end.
So
it's not like you go away and then they'll just phone your boss.
No.
It's quite a unique model actually.
It was almost military.
There's been a lot of bad press around like Charlie Mullen's model, like what he had there, but
it works.
It works. You're saying it works.
It was,
and like, you were a big earner there.
I was there
after a period of time.
It took it. Like I say, it was so different. It took me a good year to get into the swing of it properly. And there's a lot of people that don't like the company, like engineer wise. Like you would get people turn their eyes up at you when you walk into a merchant, and it's until you experience it. Like I just used to say to them, like, "They're like, oh, you like charge ludicrous money," and I'm like, "Look," I said, I literally say to them, "I'll tell you the difference. If someone calls you and you're booked out for 8 days, you're no good to them." And I was like, the difference is we've got 200 of you, technically. So if there's a problem, you can get there. I was
We're there today. We're there within an hour.
Literally, and that's
it's actually like Uber.
Uber
for plumbing.
Literally, it was.
It's an interesting model.
It took about a year to get in the swing of it, and then I really thrived, I would say. I work well under discipline. If there's slack, honestly, myself, even being honest with myself, I don't work well to that. It's like, again, it's the culture of the business.
So accountability and stuff as well. You've sort of got an accountability around you because it's so well operated.
And you weren't slacking. If you slacked or whatever, you weren't fit for the company.
Hi guys, sorry to interrupt the episode, but I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Scope Branding for being our new podcast sponsor. As you're aware, if you've been listening and following the podcast, I'm really big on my branding and having branded workwear. We've teamed up with these guys. They've done all our work at Taylor Roofs, Taylor Solar, and now the Taylor Talks brand here that you can see. They're good quality, good prices, and really good service. Go and connect with Scope Branding on their social media channels, check out their website, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode.
So they would be quite ruthless in that sense, I think. Charlie did always say that. Like I've had had him on the podcast a few times and had lots of conversations with him, and I think he gave people a chance. I think sometimes when he comes out with the things that he says, he's like, if they're not right, get rid of them, but that's a small segment of what he's saying, but basically he's like, this is the best. So if you want to be here, you need to turn up in the suit for the interview. You need to chap the customer's door, let them know what's happening, communicate all the time, bill at the end. So
and it worked, and it's one of those, it's sort of like I say, it teaches you a different way that we're not used to. As such, like I say, no other normal company that I'd ever seen, or like a lot of my pals are in the trade and they're looking like, what, you operate like that? And I'm like, well, yeah, we do, and it just I thrived on it. And I say, give me a chance, like from, if you compared when I started day one to 6-7 years down the line, completely different engineer in terms of ability, customer communication, just the whole everything to do with it. And I ended up being their highest earner for 5 years on the spin.
Wow.
So,
and how does that work? Was there like a leaderboard type thing? He did say he used to. He used to have, that's the top engineers, that's the bottom ones. You'll get this job.
That's literally how it was. So there would be top of the leaderboard, all the way down to the very bottom. When you first start, obviously you start at the bottom and you work your way up. It's literally like that.
It does sound ruthless, but like all good teams have got that sort of,
it's incentivizing,
winning culture of I want to get there. And even with Charlie now starting WeFix, that's what he said. He was like, we only want the best.
So, but I think it's a mentality. Like I say, it doesn't work for everyone. And I remember it was quite funny. I remember when I first heard about the leaderboard, I was like, I remember saying to myself, I'm going to be number one day. And that was driving me straight away. And you'd get van upgrades. So you'd start off, I remember I started off in a van that was super old and ancient. I was like, oh, this gear stick's about that long. Like, couldn't even see reverse and first on it. But then it was like, you'd work hard, you'd do good, and they'd be like, right, we'll give you a better van. So that was incentive.
What about the number plates? Was the number plates like an incentive as well? Like if you were a good engineer, you'd maybe have a good private plate.
It was quite a thing with the engineers. I think it was like the van numbers eventually went up to, like, when I was there, 240 by the time I left. So it was 240 vans. And
what an operation.
Oh, it was mental. And
like 240 vans, I think I've got 20 vans now, and I think that's a lot.
And it was, there would be like a little on-call group, or like there'd be you could say the top 5, 6, 7 guys, and like, you're either new or you're shit kind of thing. And you're like, what do you mean? And it's like, you're under van 150. Like, what are you doing wrong? And it was like that whole thing was driving everyone. And now you get, I've just got van upgrade, I'm above you now kind of thing. And it was you look back now and you're like, it worked. It did work. So there's a lot of pointers that I took from my experience working there, down to the company before, down to the startup company.
And what sort of, like, see in terms of culture, how did they hold the culture together? Like I was saying to you there once, like when we went from like 6 guys to then 16 plus, the culture that separates, we had to put certain things in that we do, and then now I think we're probably 40 odd staff now. And again, it's like you feel like these wee ripple effects, and you need to pull everybody back in, but it's hard to get everyone in the one place all the time. Did they do like team meetings or things like that? Or
it was sort of more, not so much teaming.
Or was their culture maybe more just driven by performance of, you come, you do a good job, you go by the company guidelines, you'll be a top earner, you'll get the good van, you'll get the good stuff. And it's almost like by everybody adhering to that, I'm not saying you didn't need a culture, but it was just...
it was sort of, I think, it was either you was going down or you was going up. That was, I think that was almost the culture of the business. I don't think it really needed, because of everything you had in place, I don't think it really needed, you either wanted it or you didn't. Some people were happy to coast middle. Some people wanted to be at the top. Some people were happy sitting at the bottom. And if you didn't like it, you thought, it's down to yourself to improve that.
So there was always something you could do. It was down to your attitude. What a way to have it, to be honest.
It was...
and life is like that anyway. However, sometimes, if you're an apprentice or you're a tradesman and you're working in a firm, like sometimes you can't see how to win that obvious. Whereas like what Charlie seemed to really do there is like just make the pathway really easy to say, this is how you do good, that's how you do bad, that's the middle.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it, and put your, like, if you apply yourself, you're going to be at the top. That's very interesting, because I know he's had a lot of bad rap, but like you don't have 250 vans on the road. You're doing something wrong. Do you know? You're getting it right. You're doing something right. You're selling for 145 mil or whatever it was. You're doing something right.
I think it comes down to a lot of people like I say, we used to get stick from other engineers in the merchant.
Yeah. That's as a jealousy, probably.
Yeah.
A bit of hate, and they probably wanted to be there, but
yeah, they couldn't. They didn't. They didn't. It's either for you. Pimlico was either you for it or you wasn't. That was it.
Is it almost like a franchise in a sense? Did you kind of feel as though you owned your own part of that? Because
do you know what it was like? It was sort of when you built a genuine rapport with a customer.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like, even though it's technically Pimlico's customer, they would call in for you.
Yeah.
So you build a relationship with that customer.
Yeah. So could they choose the engineer?
Yeah. So like someone may ring in and go, I want James. I only want James.
Yeah, because you've been before.
Yeah.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah. So, and that's where
it actually just sounds like Uber so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they would like review you guys and maybe leave something saying James did a great job again.
Yeah.
Delighted.
But they did things like that. Like say, the more reviews you got, they did like employees in a month. Charlie would give us a £200 Langham's voucher.
Yeah.
Go and eat some food.
Yeah. Brilliant.
It's just incentives.
Yeah. So you took a lot of inspiration from them.
Massively.
Yeah,
massively.
It's quite cool how like your journeys went as well. It's almost like you did start in the kind of bottom league, like not the bottom league, but you know what I mean. It was sort of small family-run business, and then you moved to like a bit of a bigger one, then an even bigger one, and it was like the best. So it's like it's nice to see how it progressed that way. And then when did the sort of ideas come around for starting your own thing? Then was this always there in the background?
I think I had in my head that one day I will be a business owner.
Yeah.
But I'm quite the mentality of that when I reach my limit somewhere, working for someone. I think another is quite a strange factor is I read a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, you either work for someone or you don't. And then I got a lot of ideas and incentives through every journey that I went through.
Yeah.
Lots of experiences. And then it was a case of where I was like, I think it was coming to about year 4 or 5 in Pimlico, and I was starting to think, year 6 maybe in, and I was like, I want to eventually do my own thing.
Yeah.
And then I think what the ceiling point for me was when he sold it. Massive changes.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, no, that's it now. I didn't really like a lot of the changes personally. So I thought, well, this isn't really for me anymore. I'd reached I'd held the top spot for 4 or 5 years, and it was like, well, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
Do I sit there and be unhappy, or well, I want to own my own business, so let's...
And it did seem as though, like, even just like picking up on all those points of your journey, you always sort of hit this crossroads point at each one, didn't you?
Yeah.
Where it was like, and you just must have knew this is time.
Yeah.
What was the changes like that? So this was the American outfit that
so
bought over.
I mean, look, Charlie's method, you could say he'd reached the maximum scalability there. So it was sort of like 250 was the limit on the road. With the operation they had in the office, I think 250 was the max. Otherwise it would have been, we need a bigger building.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where if you can sell something for that much money, why are you going to try and grow it even more? So I think the private equity company, American lot, who bought it was like, right, let's try and make this scalable, which from a business perspective, I understand. You know, like they're looking at it as we want to make money.
An investment.
Yeah. So they're first of all, I think they've now brought in like all digital PDA stuff, which is the norm, right? Everyone has that. Right, job pings up on the app, you go there. But that changed the whole. You could say.
Was it harder for you to make money now that it was being done in that way?
It just wasn't as efficient.
Yeah.
Initially, maybe I don't know what it's like now. Can't comment on what it's like now. But when I was there, the efficiency wasn't tight ship.
Yeah.
And it was becoming frustrating for me personally.
Yeah. That makes sense.
So
it probably was a teething problem.
Yeah.
Because we've moved over to like job management software and.
Well, we use it as well. Yeah.
So it's like, and I know that sometimes when I think back to our earlier days, like WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Paper copies of job sheets and like everything was like, we knew where everything was every time, but that's fine when it's smaller, and I guess when you are trying to scale you have got to digitalize it.
Yeah.
I know from speaking to Charlie, I don't think he's going down the digital route though. He's gone back to the proper.
Yeah, he's gone back to.
So how did you guys get your jobs in? Did you need to physically go in and pick up the paperwork?
No, so it's quite funny. So when the American lot took over, they did like engineer meetings. So they brought that in because they wanted to hear X, Y, Z, whatever. And
that's that culture thing I was talking about.
Yeah. And I was like, there was a lot of teething issues, and I was like, I'll do a day in the office.
Yeah.
So I went in and did a day in the office, and it was all paper, and I was like, wow, this is you know what, the procedure was tight ship.
Yeah.
But to try and manage that under 250 engineers was, so we would basically call in the morning.
Yeah.
When Charlie had it, we would call in, they'd put you on a brief hold, like, where are you, what area are you in? And like the leaderboard would have, for example, James available Northwest 1.
Yeah.
So I'd go, yeah, I'm Northwest 1. They'd go through the job sheets and go, right, give that to him, James Northwest 1. And then this is where, where it's very, you'd go to the job, you'd look at it and go, right, I'm going to be here 6 hours. Then you'd have to ring them and go, I'm going to be done at 1 o'clock. And then they'd update the board, James available at 1 p.m.
Yeah.
So then that's how they operated it. Whereas, again, when you're trying to flip over to a digital system, like I use a digital system, there's only 4 or 5 of us. So that's very easy to implement. But I'm looking at that, and then when I did that day in that office, and I was like, whoa, there's 250 of us on the road, and you're trying to change all of this, put it into something digital, and then shift it out to us guys without shutting the business down is a challenge.
Yeah. Wow.
So
I wonder how they're getting on with it. We'll maybe need to get somebody to go on.
But yeah, so that's basically how it was.
Yeah, and then so it was too frustrating.
Yeah,
you were already thinking about moving, so...
And then I thought there's a
what
bit of
made you
gap in...
take the plunge?
Yeah, I think there's a gap in the market now to a degree, because I looked at it as I've had the experience of smooth, slick.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're not now. They may well be now.
They might get it right, but they were...
And then I've had the experience of, you see all the other companies and what they're doing, and I thought, oh, there's a small gap. Let's try and offer a niche of... we can be, technically at the minute, selective with who we do work for. Yeah. And let's try and offer that prompt, slick, smooth service again.
Are you, would you say then, probably trying to do maybe what Charlie did in the early days, like when he was coming up, like he worked for more like high-end...
Yeah, I'd say we're definitely going for
like,
that.
Do you know, like, not so much just high end. It was just like, look, this is our price point. We're going to give you amazing service. We're not really going to squeeze that for anyone. So if you want like a cheap service from someone who can give you, like, it's going to be cheaper, but they might not answer the phone all the time. You're not going to get as good a service. Like, you're just very much focusing on all the ethics that you've built to this point. Good customer care, do you know, good professional looking vans, uniforms, the trades guys that work for you, they're all the same. I've seen as well, like, you're putting down like your branded dust sheets and stuff.
But the customers love them. They're waterproof, they're anti-slip, they've got nice padding on them, and it's like, it just looks great. You rock up, and some of them joke and say, oh, they're your yoga mats, and I'm like, no, these are protect your floors, you know. And it goes a long way. You sheet the whole house out like it's, you know.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, and I think it was one of those where you couldn't say, like, you could say higher end clients, but I'm a firm believer of, as you probably are, like with some of the stuff I've seen going on here, like I remember when I first picked up my first van, and it was like, right, I need to get it wrapped, I need to do this, I need to do that, and it was like, I was running around like an idiot. And then it was like, at the beginning I was like, if I could just pay someone to come and get the van, and I don't want to know anything about it, and bring it back and it's done. And that's the kind of mentality customer that we want. So it's sort of like, I've got no heat and hot water, I want you guys to get here when I want you to get here, and I just want it solved. You know, and they appreciate that. Because
if you really think about it, there's like, if someone's got a problem, like maybe heating's not so much, but plumbing, they could probably get the tools, go on YouTube, and somehow solve it. But it's going to take like days, probably. So like that exists. But on the other hand, there's just, I need to... they might be working from home now, or they need to get to work or whatever. It's like that problem's right there in this moment, and if someone can get there and just solve it straight away, it comes at a premium cost.
I'm a firm believer of, you know, it's one of those where there's other, I can't really say it about many other companies I've used personally, but where I like to come off the phone and think, oh, what a great experience. And I believe that we can offer that. That's what I genuinely believe. I believe that every customer that we've dealt with is smooth, it's quick, it's stress-free, and it's just dealt with, you know, and they come away thinking, wow, that was easy. You know, the vans look brilliant. I was a bit gutted that you couldn't bring one up. It would have been a good 7-8 hours up and then back down as well, but that would have been quite cool to see it in the flesh. But they look great. I've seen your stuff on like Instagram mostly, and it just looks brilliant. We're trying.
I just don't think that can ever. I don't think that'll ever go away. Like good sign-written vans or wrapped vans, the uniforms, just polite and friendly customer service. Like
it goes such a long way.
Like, but that it sounds so easy and basic, but so many people just can't do it.
They get it wrong.
So many trades guys just, I actually think that they feel as though the world owes them a favour. So they feel like that customer should just know that, well, I'm a trades guy, I'm busy.
Yeah.
But it's like, what I've found is, and I was speaking to you off air when we were down in the boardroom earlier, but what I've said to my team here is the office team, like, they're the USP. They can create all the sort of the wee extra phone calls in between and just letting customers know that we're coming and all of that stuff. And I know probably the other side of that model is like probably the Pimlico one you were talking about there. You would phone the customer and say, I'm on my way, because that's probably going to...
Yeah.
Do you know, but like for us, we try to make sure like our roofers have got a support network around them that does all of that stuff for them. So the customer service is really good, and then we still...
But that's still a great business model.
Yeah,
Still, what you're doing is I'd say there's two ways to doing it. Like Pimlico have got far more to police.
Yeah.
In terms of they've got 250 guys. They need to individually go make sure they're doing that right. Whereas you have your in-house team that you have a system.
Yeah.
And then go, guys, just go and do the job.
Yeah.
You know that.
And our guys are all like employed through the books as well. So when you get that sort of, there's probably no quite that self-employed like high earner like real drive. Like we're probably there's probably guys out there in the marketplace that like they wouldn't work for us. They wouldn't be like totally on their own, but they're kind of in that middle bracket.
Yeah.
And it's like they'll earn more than the guys here, but they might not get
as much as the guys.
They're not going to get like a van, like a nice wrapped van and a uniform and stuff like that. And sometimes that's not important for these people. They just want just about the money. So like we try and create a bit of a culture here, and you know, as the business grows, we always need to get back in and make it better. But it is very much like our guys have got peace of mind, job security. There's no really that many consequences if they get something wrong. We have got targets and stuff to hit, but a lot of the time, you know, the office plays a big part in trying to help support them with that. But equally, we have got a culture of hard work. It's one of our main values. So you're trying to keep that all in there, and communication's one as well. And you've touched on that. So how's things going then in terms of the?
It's been.
Where did the name come from?
It's quite a funny one. So I was actually talking with my brother for a long time about names and stuff, and he actually helped me with the colour scheming. I was sort of scratching my head for ages, and I've touched on it a little bit on my Instagram, but I was just laying in bed. It was about 6. So in my mentality, when I was thinking of the name, I was like, I've got to have the website and I've got to be able to have the limited company, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I want something that's meaningful, not just because I looked at it as also, if I have a name, like, I don't want it to be me associated with it.
You want a brand, you want a company.
Yeah, so I want it, so they're not ringing me, they're ringing the company. So it was sort of like, oh, let's go for that or this. And I was like, no, that didn't sound right. That didn't look right. And it didn't sound right at first, Plumus, when I initially picked it. But I was laying in bed, I Googled who started plumbing. Yeah. And like a Roman piece come up on Google, was like a historical information bit. And it was just basically saying how the Romans started plumbing, blah, 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 blah. As Plumus in Latin means lead, and they used to run on a pipework in lead.
Right.
So I was like, wow, that's got a good meaning behind it. It's actually to do with who started plumbing. So I went online, I was like plumus.com, and the domain was available to buy. So I was like, tick, right, that's one. And then went on Company's House, and it was quite funny because there was a company called PLUM space US. So obviously Company House don't allow you to have a name that's very similar, and I looked at it and it was dissolved. I was like, oh, touch. So I typed in Plumus Limited, it was available, and then from there I was just set on it. And then my brother was sort of like, what sort of look do you want your business? What are you trying to achieve? And I was like, I think we want to be more of a premium company.
Yeah.
So he was like, purple's quite royal. And I was like, I was like, that didn't sound good to me, Ben. And then he was like, a bit of purple and gold. And he's like, listen, just trust me. Let me draw something out. And he did, sketched me a piece on a bit of paper, sent it to me. And I was like, that actually looks quite good. Yeah. You know, and then it just sort of come from there, really.
I'll put your Instagram and stuff in the bio of the podcast. People like need to go and check the vans out. They look class, to be fair. It's like they'll look like Pimlico style, their original style, but obviously in different colours. And because you're wrapped it, and the Pimlico vehicles never used to be wrapped, so, and it's matte as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
they do turn a lot of heads in town.
They look really amazing, and like you said with the purple, like, it just looks like royalty almost. It's for a plumbing van as well. Like,
and they clean up great. And like, say every time we're in traffic in London as well, when there's a few vans in traffic, people are stopping and they're like, what's that? Like, and they're proper staring at it. And it's like, and they're great marketing tools. We've even won work where we'll go and do a little 1 hour job. We had it the other week. We went and done a 1 hour job. Someone walked past the van that the engineer was doing a job in, and they called through, I've just seen one of your vans parked up in Northwest 1 and I've got no heating.
Yeah.
And that was it. And we ended up winning a boiler for it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of
That's
like,
brilliant.
you know, they're so important. And this is where it goes back to where I was actually reading through some of your comments on your social media where people are like, oh, I don't care about a sign written van. Oh, you don't need it.
Someone will steal the tools. And you're like, no, there's too many positives to be worrying about that. They'll steal the tools anyway.
Right. Yeah.
If they're going to steal the tools, they're taking them out of a white van or a wrapped van. If there's something like, do you know.
It doesn't make a difference. And I look at it as like, we would never have got that customer. We would never have got that job.
Wouldn't have known who you were.
No.
Unless they really wanted to come over and maybe chat the door and be like, by any chance, are you a heating engineer? But who's actually going to do that? Do you know?
No one. And then again, it's like, are you trusted?
When you see that van and you can see it's like, it just emblazons trust upon you. It's like, right, I'm going to call that number.
Yeah.
What about the reg plates? You've been doing that as well.
Yeah, I have.
Did you buy any off Charlie?
No, I definitely got the idea from there though. And like again, we've had so many people stop, and they'll take photos of the snaps. We bought another one last week. It's actually quite a comical one. It's a West 7 poo. So you know, you got to get some comical ones. And they like them. You know, they look at them and they think that's a good look. It's a good market.
Have you got a big tap?
A big tap,
Big tap, yeah.
We got clog bog on one of the drainage vans.
Yeah. And are these expensive?
They vary, you know.
Depends.
If you're smart, like if you think about it, and like that bog too old one we got, so it's BO62 OLD. So when it's spaced, it looks like bog too old. I think it was only like 200 quid.
Yeah.
And I was like,
wow.
oh, it's because no one's thought of the lettering.
I'm surprised Charlie hasn't got everyone that ever existed, you know, because he was so passionate about it.
But yeah, they're great. Again, great marketing tool.
Yeah.
And that was what I learned from them, because so many people would stop and point at the plates, and I just think. And then I think a lot of people started cutting on to that. I see your plate outside. You got T roofs. Looks very smart. And again, uptown we see, or like round our way, a lot of people are doing it as well.
It's quite common now. It was I think that's what made probably what Charlie did in Pimlico, like what he did with Pimlico, so special, because
he was the first to do it.
When I was looking at him, like that's where a lot of my inspiration came from, and I read his book and I was just like, wow, like and I think even if I go back to my first employer, like proper employer, who gave me my roofing apprenticeship, he had like sign written vans, private plates, all of that stuff, but I don't know if I just wasn't taking it in the same way until later on. And then
I think maybe when you see it on a bigger level,
I think that's what it maybe was. I didn't probably quite understand it, but he even had like stickers on the side of the vans at that time, which was like, it was almost like little mascots of the person who drove the van. So I just remember like there was like Roadrunner, and that was the surveyor guy, and it was
that's really smart.
It was quite good.
Yeah.
I'd actually forgot about that until there just now. And then there was is it Elmer Fudd? There was that one, and that was like on one of like the gaffers who was grumpy.
I think they're good little touches though. I think
it brings a bit of character to it. But then there was a time where it just got messy, because every van had its sort of own unique thing going on,
and they didn't mirror.
And then like, for example, like my van was in the garage getting fixed, and then I was driving around like the joinery division van, but I'm a roofer turning up to do a roofing job. So they sometimes went a bit niche on the vans, that if you had to use it on something else, it just became a bit. Yeah. But at the same time, it probably wasn't a massive issue. Like, I don't think the customer would have looked and went, why have I got the joinery division there? But I think what it did is it made the outside world see the scale. So they would go roofing division, joinery division. Like
I think that's actually, from a business owner's perspective, same as you, like that's also telling the public that what else you do. Whereas if you only have, like at the minute, for example, if some companies only have plumbers, or they're only advertised as plumbers, or only advertised as roofers, and then they see another van that says joinery. They do joinery as well. That's good to know. So
it definitely makes sense. And what's the future hold then? What's like? Are you got ambition to be like the next Pimlico, like 250 vans, or is it somewhere in between?
That was the initial, when I started, I was like, I want to get to 250, 300 vans. But I think at the same time, as well as being as good for the public, I want it to be somewhere where people want to work for me, kind of thing. So I think my headspace at the minute, my mentality is maybe get to 30 vans, 30 engineers, but you have the pick of the engineers. So I want it to be the best place to work. I'm not saying I'm going to 100% achieve that, but we'll definitely give it our best to make sure that it's best for the business, best for the engineer, best for the customer.
Yeah.
And if we can achieve 30 guys and then hold it at that, I think, and then everyone will see us around, or you get other trades. Oh, what's it like working for them? Oh, it's really good. Oh, it's great. How do you get a job there? So then that's maybe my mentality of how you then grow it, because then you can go, I'll have him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then everyone will. That's my mindset on how it might not work.
I'm just smiling because like I've always had these like, I'll get to that point and we'll just keep it at that, and then you get there and you go, oh, now with this amount of people, you need like another supervisor, or you need like this person, and depending how the model goes, it's different. But ours has been very much because we've got that sort of team around the team as such. You almost, now we're this size, we need like one extra person to answer the phones, and we need this to do this part.
Spinning plates, right?
Yeah, but it's good. It's a challenge, and you get to that point, and you know you
it's a milestone, I think, every point, isn't it? So that's why I think if you have my mentality is like the very end goal maybe 300, and then like I says the whiteboard saga that we was talking about earlier, I'll write down, right, well, how do I get there? So it'll be a case of, right, let's not run before we can walk. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Let's get to here first, and then we'll reassess. So plan is to maybe start we'll get our premises early next year. That'll be potentially step one, and then, as you know, things naturally grow from there, and start just pushing that direction. But at the same time, the most important thing is to keep this service great. So I think
I always sort of focus on these three things: reputation, culture, and profit. And I think that when you focus too much on profit and the reputation and the culture slips, then you're getting it wrong. So it can't be just profit driven. But when you focus on the reputation and the culture, it's almost like the profit just comes as a byproduct. But I don't think any of the other two really overly can get that same result. So I think if you focus on like reputation and culture, almost equals profit.
That's almost like the
like it's still difficult, but you know that's what I look at. And the way that you were talking about it there, something I've always been big with my surveying team who go out and visit the jobs and do the sales. Like win, and it's almost that same thing. It's like it should be, and you mentioned this, it should be good for the company, it should be good for the engineer or the roofers, and it should be good for the customer. And like if you can get those three right, and you're not going to get 100% every time, but if you try your best and that's your goal, then you're on the right path.
Exactly. But again, I think if the engineers are aware of that as well, they'll think that, like you say, it may not be 100% all the time, but then they'll have in their head, well, that's what he wants. So it's not like they're singling us out and.
And I had to do that with my team recently, where I was like, I drew that out and I showed them the three like reputation, culture, profit, and I said I think we have been focusing too much on the bottom line. I think we've been trying to hit the targets too intensely, and I think the other areas are slipping, and that's because we've probably added on a good £500,000 of extra turnover this year. So you go through those little like
you say
tight spots, teething problems. But when you bring the team back and lay it out and go, we need to focus again on what got us
to where you are.
To this point. And I know there's a big saying that's what got you here won't get you there. But still, sometimes I think you need to brush everything up, then ready to go again. And it will probably take something different to take you off in another direction.
That's very true. The one I live by, I think, is also as well is a definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
So that's Einstein. And you know, that will just be timeless.
It's one of those where you're like, we've done this, and this, but it's not getting us there. So then as a business, you're like, let's try something else. But at the same time, keeping those three things.
And that's like we were having a chat about sort of how I've built my business off air before we started, but you know, I've got someone like pretty much spending 40 hours, sometimes multiple people in these areas spending 40 hours a week on each bit. So answering the phones, finance, surveyors, multiple teams in there, general manager, supervisors, the actual roofers themselves, all like the schedulers, materials buyer, all these different roles. And then once that's all sort of operating for you, then you like my job is to get in and actually strip the model back down again. And like you said, they're maybe stuck in that hamster wheel which I've given them. It's a model I've given them, and I've been like, look, this works, and it maybe worked at like 2.5 mil, but it doesn't work at like 3.5 mil. So it's up to me to like strip it down and say, how can we get there? Yeah, because they're just gone, well, we're just doing what we always did, but it's not working, and that is that Einstein. Do you know, you're just stuck in that sort of. But that's where you'll come in and go, right, let's try this, let's try that, and experiment with it, but not tweaking it too much so it throws the whole thing out. Yeah, and what I'm trying to do more so now as well is to build people. The people below me, build them up so that they've got that thought process as well, not sort of, do you know, like they're not scared to like put a spoke in the wheel and stop it all and go, right, we need to reassess. That's good as well, because you're giving them further responsibility, and then they can be your brains to a degree, because they know how you think and how you want things. They can go, right, let's do this, and then present it to you, and that frees up your time. Yeah, because we were in the think tank next door, and you seen all my ideas. I love the name. I love it. and in there, you know, like I'm pretty good with getting the stuff on the whiteboards, onto the flip charts or whatever. But then you need integrators. You need people that's just going to actually get it done. Like the smaller details, although like I'm quite OCD about them, I'm not very good at actually implementing them. And I think when you realise that if you're not the implementer, you need to build implementers around about you that's like they'll go and try and achieve this, because your standard might be here, but what you're actually capable of implementing is down here, but with them it could be up here, so you're always getting closer to the mark. I think I've learned that coming across, especially like even coming here today and seeing the change from where I'm at to where you're at, and to even where the even bigger guys are at. You know, it's the whole process. And like you say, the biggest thing for me is that and exactly what you just said, is that if you're acknowledging that you might not be great at that area, so then get someone else in who is great at that area, and that will grow your business naturally anyway. I think a lot of people are scared to employ others. I hear it all the time, like even like trades business owners that I've helped mentor and things like that, they'll be like, I'm just not sure. But what I usually say to them is, trust me, if you put somebody spending 40 hours on that thing there that you're not that good at, you'll then have accountability to go, like you'll need to get better at marketing, and you'll need to get better at sales, because if you're adding people, you need more work coming in. So it now becomes a point where you can't survive off word of mouth. You need to market, and you need to be good at sales. So you need to get the leads, and then you need to be able to convert them. But that allows you to go and spend time doing that. Exactly. So and without that, there's no growth. No, exactly. It's another thing. It was like the one-man band guys that are like, they're on the tools, they're on the road, they're answering the phone, they're doing the booking, and it's just like, we obviously, so you have to start somewhere. Yeah, of course. And it pulled my hair out. I was like, I can't deal with this. It sounds so unprofessional if I'm answering the phone on a job and stop drilling. Like, you know, it doesn't work. And as soon as you take that edge off, then you go, right, I don't need to worry about that anymore. That's taken care of. And then, like you say, you can allocate your time somewhere that's going to be more progressive for your business, and you will grow. But I understand the mentality of being scared, but at the same time I don't. I feel like if you put yourself in that position, you've got to do it. It's the sink or swim thing. It's the sink or swim. It's like, right, I'll get someone in to answer the phone. I now never need to worry about answering the phone. I'll get someone in to start the marketing. Again, because we've got someone in doing our marketing that's implemented, and it's like, what am I supposed to do? Spend 10 hours a day doing that, and then I can't deal with anything else. And it's, no, definitely. Like even social media is such a big thing now. It's like you could be on there all day. So I think that's probably one of the parts that we still quite heavily outsource, but we've sort of made inroads to bringing in-house as well, the marketing. But I would say that's probably been my, I basically, I do this analogy where I draw 3 circles, and it's like sales, operations, admin and finance, and that's like the 3 main ones. And usually what I say is give off the admin and finance first, get someone in to do that. It's usually us trades guys aren't that great at it, we just can get by and no more. So give that off, and then 40 hours or whatever it takes, that's spent. Now you've got that salary to cover, but you're now sales and operations, and then there's probably marketing and sales in that bubble as well, but marketing and sales and then operations. And then with operations stuff, you slowly but surely, you give the guys standards, you let them start to do their own things, you come away from it a bit, and then slowly but surely I just made that progression over to marketing and sales. So bringing my own leads in, making sure I was delivering and getting the sales. That's when you start going over £1 million and stuff, because when you're focused on that bubble more so than the rest, your company goes over £1 million, because I can say that because we did that like sort of almost straight out the bat when I went, right, I'm in that zone now. So you end up, you've got sort of someone handling this, someone handling that. You still need to oversee these things as you always will.
Yeah.
But your main job is you're almost
to
the
generate
salesman
the work, right?
of your own company. You know, the marketer of your own company. And the marketing bit's usually always outsourced till quite far on. I would say it's probably, take quite a big trades company, have their own in-house SEO, their own in-house ads.
But that's the aim, right?
Yeah.
Because then it'll be one of those where you can go, right, I want that done.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for someone to do it.
Yeah, it's just done. And then you can go tweak that, never worked last week, change that, and you can do it. Like, the dream would be in-house for everything, I think.
Yeah, of course it would.
And that's probably the difference between us being like a 3 mil company and a 10 mil company. In the market that we're in, it's very heavily marketing orientated because we're homeowners only. Well,
the
like
first
95% homeowners only. So like you need to market. So that'll continue for us. If we want to get to this 10 mil that we're aiming for, then that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, it will be. It's one of those natural progression anyway. Like you say, where you look at when you was touching on it, when we was outside, you started in a smaller place and then you get into the bigger place.
Yeah.
And then you'll get into an even bigger place. And then it'll be one of those. And I say, I think my job's gone from being an engineer to doing a job to this to that, and now I see myself as my job is to get that phone to ring.
Yeah, definitely.
That's my job, you know. And if I'm not making that phone ring, then this is collapsing. That's
that was I went on a big long-winded tangent there. But you'd mentioned you were going to get the premises. Once you get the premises, you'd grow as a person to fill it and make sure it's all utilised, and you just become even more entrepreneurial. How do I make sure this is paying for itself? How do I fill the space? Like you've seen in here, got a few spare offices and stuff at the moment. So you go, what can we bring in house? What could go in these offices? We've got the podcast studio here. We've got an option to rent it out to people if we want. There's been a bit of demand for that because there's nothing really in this area. You need to kind of go Edinburgh or Glasgow, but for West Lothian where we are, there's a bit of a demand for it. So we've got an option to do that. So you just become even more.
You open more doors without even knowing about it. Like.
I think that's probably us for time, mate. That was awesome.
It was good.
What's the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they want to
email? You can email us or DM us on Instagram.
We'll have your links in the socials and stuff like that. I would encourage people to check out the brand and check out the vans. But I appreciate you coming all the way up from London, mate.
I enjoyed it. It's good.
A great episode.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant. All the best, mate, in the future. Thanks very much.
No worries.
Good man.
Cheers.